Hello there. Good morning. Warm welcome to you to the newspaper review segment of the morning show. My name is Blessed Man Aloma. So I'm sitting in once again for Kwame Usudan. So we are live from our studios here, number 48 Swanika Street in Abilinkpe. This show is also live on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Do all to connect with us. Send in your thoughts and comments on the topics we'll be discussing, and I'll be more than glad to read all of them for you. Yesterday, somebody actually sent a message and said, I don't read the messages. And I only read messages I only decide not to read your message when I realize that you insult people in it. So please make sure that your messages are devoid of insults, and I'll be more than happy. You can express yourself without necessarily, insulting somebody. Just, employ decorum. That is the point, right? So these are the topics we'll be discussing for this morning's show. Ethiopia lifts state of emergency. That story we took from the Ghanaian Times newspaper. And go back to lecture theaters. Court orders UTAG. Interesting. This story is going to be very interesting, especially for the fact that I have two members of UTAG here with me. And minorities e-levy tussle in Parliament was a fight for democracy. John Mahama is saying that. And COPEC predicts another fuel price increment. The Inside newspaper captured that particular story. It's like we've become accustomed to fuel price hikes. Every week we see increments. So we are used to it now, if you ask me. Good morning, Dr. Mazuk. Welcome. Professor Dr. Mauto, I'm waiting to hear your submission on go back to lecture halls. Go back to lecture theaters. It's been 5 weeks now, It's been 5 weeks now. And I have friends at Legon, UPSA, and UAE, University of Applied Management, who have now decided to go home because they've paid their fees and the lecturers are not around to, to teach them. So they have no other option than to go home. And some of them don't even like the fact that. But the fact that they've paid their fees, so they've paid part of their fees. You've paid your fees, yes. And the person to teach you says, I won't work because the person to pay me to has decided that what I'm asking for, he won't provide. It's been like 5 weeks now. 5 weeks is a long time. Dr. Mauto and Dr. Mazuk. 5 weeks is a long time.
Yeah, it is, but payment of fees is not the only condition. It's only one of the conditions.
Of the many conditions.
Yes, many conditions. It's unfortunate. I don't like it that way, personally, if you ask me. I don't like it on humanitarian grounds. But on fair grounds, definitely we should also ask for what is
do you
exactly.
I
don't like it. I don't like. I personally do not like anything that will call for strike in the educational sector, because remember, once the educational calendar, the academic calendar is disturbed, then of course the learner and the teacher will have an extra burden to make up. Exactly. And that is not. That's why university degrees are structured according to the credit hours. So if the design is disturbed, if the credit hours are disturbed, if the academic calendar is disturbed, you will definitely have something to manage, an unnecessary burden to manage. I don't like it that way, but at the end of the day, I also do not have the power to prevent the strike. I think the necessities of preventing or allowing the strike is a matter of public policy. So we go back to the policy makers. They should try as much as possible to do everything within their capacity to ensure that conditions justifying strikes by lecturers do not in the first place exist.
Thank you very much. We'll get into that particular story after we have digested our African story for today. Ethiopia Parliament votes to lift state of emergency early. Ethiopia's parliament has voted for an early end to a 6-month state of emergency declared last November when rebel Tigrayan forces were threatening to march on the capital, Addis Ababa. The lawmakers' decision came yesterday after cabinet proposals last month about cutting short the emergency measures in light of improving security conditions in the country. After swift advances in November, most of the rebel forces have retreated to their home region of Tigray, and there are signs of a tentative thaw in relations between the warring sides. Of the 312 lawmakers who attended the session, 63 opposed lifting the state of emergency, while 21 abstained from the vote. It was not immediately clear whether the state of emergency would be lifted yesterday, directly following Parliament's vote. The 6-month state of emergency allows, among other things, for roadblocks to be established, transport services to be disrupted, curfews to be imposed, and for the military to take over in certain areas. Anyone suspected of having links with terrorist groups could also be detained without a court warrant, while any citizen who has reached the age of military service could be called to fight. Our country is facing a grave danger to its existence, sovereignty, and unity, Justice Minister Gideon Timotheus told a state media briefing when the emergency measures were declared. And we can't dispel this danger through the usual law enforcement system and procedures. So they have to actually break the law in order to ensure that certain provisions are enforced. The move came after the Tigrayan fighters said they had captured the strategic towns of Dessie and Kombolka in the Amarat region and indicated they might advance further south on the capital of Addis Ababa. Both towns have since returned to government control. Right? Is this good news? Yes, I am.
Anyway, I will answer it. Yes, it is. It is. But it is not just good news. It is a combination of sugar and vinegar. Sugar because it is telling us about an improved security situation.
Yeah.
Vinegar because it is indicating what you and I don't want in Africa: violence. And if you study media history and then the communication order, you will agree with me that most of the imperialist news channels have as part of their editorial agenda to highlight anything negative about Africa. But should they be blamed alone? Certainly no. We should also share the blame, because if we do not have give them the opportunity of any negativity, they will have nothing to highlight. If they create, it will be unethical. And if they fabricate, they will be exposed. So I think this should be an opportunity for us to understand that we are not living in isolation. When we say we are referring to the people of Africa. We belong to the community of civilized nations and continents, a civilized world. And therefore, we should do everything possible to give a positive image of ourselves and our continent. Having said this, permit me to say special good morning to the cherished viewers of ours. Special good morning to the Wamachima of Yanna, of Yuna, of Manglana. And permit me to empathize with the people of Lemashego, the people of the northern region, the people of Tamale, particularly the victims of the Lemashego shooting incident. It was unfortunate, and we do not pray for the recurrence of such dastardly acts. Let me also commend the chief of Lemashego, His Royal Highness, for the maturity, for the responsibility in rescuing a police officer who was just about to be lynched. The same commendation goes to the leadership of the police administration for the interdiction, and then for convincing everybody that they will allow justice to prevail. I further commend the people and the youth of Tamale who have for some time been restrained because it was so bad, and if the anger hadn't been managed, it would have been something else. Let's all submit ourselves to the supremacy of the law, and let's all pray and ensure that at the end of the day, justice will prevail. You know, let me link it to the state of emergency in Ethiopia. The state of emergency is good news, as I said earlier. Yes, it is good news. And it is telling us that Ethiopia as a country, as a sovereign nation, has been able to counter rebel advances. It's good for every civilized nation. But the state of emergency itself should be understood very well. You know, I have never wanted any state of emergency. It is good for the state of emergency to be applied, and that has always been the case, to address an emerging terrible security issue. But in every state of emergency, you will witness instances of abuse of the rights of the people. What is then even state of emergency? In simple language, state of emergency is the suspension of state of constitutionalism and allowing the forces, the security forces, primarily the military and the police, to handle the situation. And in some instances, they can shoot and kill without any legal consequences. And that is why the minister has rightly made it so that Ethiopia came to a stage where they could not use the normal maintenance of security, the procedure. They needed something extraordinary, special powers to the security forces to handle the situation. It has never been good. I have witnessed a number of states of emergency, right? I think the plural should not be state of emergencies. States of emergency, right? Because the plural affects the main noun. Of emergency is only a modifier of the state. So I've witnessed a number of states of emergency. One in Boku, and I can remember, one bandit, a glorified bandit in military uniform called Frank, Captain Frank, in the name of state of emergency, tortured an innocent guy in Boku during the Boku conflict. Tortured and stripped him naked. When the video was released, the military high command denied. But when they were confronted with pictorial evidence, they had to withdraw the denial. What happened to that glorified bandit in military uniform, we do not know. Only God knows. In Dagbang, the Dagbang crisis, I have witnessed how some uncouth elements, a perverse gang, descended on innocent people in the name of state of emergency. So it has always not been good for the people, because they claim they are looking for troublemakers. I'm telling you, and at the end of the day, they rather descend on innocent people and release their anger, whatever venom, especially the trigger-happy people in military and police uniform. So let us not do anything that will even justify state of emergency. It's not good for Africa. It's not good for Ghana. It's not good for any part of Africa. So it is good that today that state of emergency has been lifted in Ethiopia. Let the Ethiopians see this as an opportunity to ensure the consolidation of constitutional culture and the improvement of security in that country. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful submission. Let me come to Professor Mauto.
All right, thank you, Bless, and good morning to my good friend and yourself, then, of USM. Indeed, I think we've been discussing this topic for some time.
Yeah.
And just as Dr. Marzouk mentioned, it's good news. It's refreshing that Ethiopia has lifted that restrictions on its people, knowing very well that in a state of emergency, movement is restricted to some specific time that you may not be able to go to wherever you want to go to. Quite remember, I think most Ghanaians, I mean, youth today, they've not experienced it before. Where there's a decree that you cannot probably move out after 6 o'clock. By 6 o'clock, you should be in your room. And in the case of Ethiopia, I mean, even state transport had been disrupted, so there are some places you cannot even go. And as usual, as independent as we are, whenever restrictions are placed on people, people get a little bit irritated, and it affects economic activities. Ethiopia, to be frank with you, was slack in most of the economic activities because of this conflicts. It's important that they manage this conflict, and it's unfortunate. Africa is always talking about conflict management, when in actual fact, what we need to do is to develop our continent. And Bless, I think during our informal conversation, I did mention that yes, we don't give too much prominence to some of those things because other African countries are doing so well. We should be looking for some innovations in the African state. Today, most countries are talking about STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And some countries are making strides. In Ghana, for instance, the ministry is piloting a lot of programs now. And the main intent is to develop the capacity of the average African to ensure that we do something good with our lives. And you see, like we always say, if governments will be listening to us, engage people meaningfully, engage the youth meaningfully, give them capacity, give them what they need to live as human beings with dignity, they will not come after your governance. I mean, there are some people who don't care about what the government does. What they expect is that in the morning when I wake up, I should have a livelihood. In the morning when I wake up, I have a job to do. I have a place to go. I have a family I call my own. I have shelter. These are things that makes nations very, very progressive. These are things that make nations to be referred as developed. Okay, but we seem to place so much emphasis on how to restrict people from doing the wrong thing, instead of addressing the issues that probably influence people to do the wrong things. So we wait till people trigger conflict, and then Africa now spends so much money, and it's always expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, this Tigrayan thing, conflict started on a very small note. The people started threatening. They even cried of, fairness. They were not dealt with. I mean, there were a number of issues they submitted to the central government by then. And if the government had listened to them, they would have cured this conflict even before exploding into a full-blown conflict. And it was just, I called it, yes, indeed, it's a strategy to have thwarted their effort. But the fact that we were able to take over some 2 major cities, and we're heading towards the capital, it tells you that it was now becoming a full-blown conflict, which resulted in the whole country. I mean, if you know Ethiopia very well, declaring state of emergency. Okay, so it's good news. But as I mentioned, African governments must, understand and appreciate the fact that, you see, it is time to develop capacity of your youth. when you allow them, or when you allow other people to use the youth for other issues or other interests, they will always create conflict for you, and you end up spending the money that you should have spent on them to try solving these conflicts. So bless, it's good news for Africa, but just as you mentioned, let's try as much as possible to also speak the other side of Africa, since every Wednesday morning we have the opportunity of at least discussing one African story. Let's look for the good ones as well.
Sure.
And then portray Africa in that state, which is not just about always managing conflict. Yes, there are cool details around us, but I can tell you that there are equally good things. The last time I thought we would discuss this serious development that is going on in Senegal, where they were able to develop the railway sector into a modern, railway sector. And this is the good news that you have to share to the whole world about Africa. There are some people who think that Africa is so deplorable that we don't even know our left from right, which is not true. And that is how the Western media has sold us. But trust us, this is a continent that the few who knows the beauty of this continent, the peace that prevails. Even in some of these conflict-ravaged countries, it doesn't mean life there is so miserable as someone may think.
Yeah.
People are there, they are going about their normal life. To a large extent, it has become part of their lives because they have to manage it. That's what the African goes through on a daily basis. So, bless, what we can say is to always appeal to government to come out with very, very progressive policies, targeting the youth especially, because they have the excess energy. Myself and you, my boss used to tell me that, look, young man, maximum, you have 20 more years to probably retire. So make do with the little life you have, and make sure that whatever you do, think about those behind you, because they are the people whom we plan and lead them with a very progressive strategy or policy. They will allow us to enjoy our retirement age. Else, you may be called on daily basis to go and solve conflict. I don't think that is what you want us to do. We want to wake up in the morning and be sharing our success story, like the way the West always do, and tell the whole world how they were able to develop their country. So bless, I think this is some task for you. Let's get equally good,
positive
issues about Africa, on innovations. I mean, innovations are going on in Kenya and other places, South Africa and other places. People donating money towards the production of vaccines. We should be talking about this for everybody to know, for everybody to hear about Africa.
Thank you very much.
Let me just add something to that. With Prof, right?
Yeah.
But then let me also add that talking about the beauty of Africa depends on the level of good governance on the continent, right? So because if there is good governance, we definitely will talk about the beauty of Africa. And depoliticization of issues.
Yeah.
Do you know that Kenya, South Africa, and Ghana have come together to sponsor the production of a vaccine, an African-oriented vaccine?
Yeah.
But this is not well known even in Ghanaian media.
Yeah.
You understand that? So, but then if they do these things, definitely people will have something to talk about. But if they allow the negativity to continue, we may not, the Ghanaian media or the African media may not highlight the negativity, but the Western media,
oh yeah,
yes, we'll see it as the beautiful content of their editorial policy. And will highlight, and of course we cannot blame them, right? Because to some of them, media practice is transactional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they look for things that will sell their stories, right? And one of the things that I want to emphasize, in fact, part of the effort to rebrand Africa is to oppose coup. The coup mentality in Africa must be opposed.
Yeah.
That coup mentality must be. There has never been any useful coup. All the coups, at least in this country, have been useless. All of them.
Have you observed their names?
I'm telling you.
Supreme Redemption
Council. Even in look, we even had Supreme Redemption Council 1, two, National Liberation Council, and they've never liberated anybody. They are self-seekers. Look, people have staged a coup and have killed others just because of owning one house.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they put up mansions.
Mansions, yeah.
Mansions. They put up mansions.
Yeah.
People came in the name of revolution, saying probity and accountability. At the end of the day, they had to struggle to even ensure probity and accountability in their own regime.
That is it.
You understand that? So coup has never been good. This is not to say, but for us, we need to balance the equation. Coup is not good. Bad governance is also
equally,
it's equally not good.
Yeah, that's
so the governors, the authorities must avoid bad governance. But whether bad or good, who cannot be the solution to our economic and social problems? Never, never. It has always been an opportunity for adventurers to come and vent their spleen, come and come and molest us and go. I was at least I was more than 10 years when that nonsense about the dismantling of constitutionalism of the regime headed by Dr. Hilal Liman. I witnessed it. How people were beaten in Tamale market, how the old market in Tamale was burned down, how people had opportunity. Any soldier, any cheap recruit wielded the power of life and death. Let's avoid that. We can avoid that in two ways. One, to campaign vigorously against that. The youth of today, those born during the Fourth Republic. And of course, we are not joking. Fourth Republic has become, has been 30 years today.
Yeah.
Almost 30 years, Fourth Republic.
Yeah.
So all those born in the Fourth Republic have never witnessed coup.
Some of us.
We have never witnessed it. We have witnessed it even though we were young. We don't want it today. We don't want it tomorrow. We don't want our mothers to be flogged publicly. We don't want our dignified personalities to be disgraced by cheap recruits. This is not to say that military is bad. No, the military
They have a role to play.
is a very credible institution, especially the Ghanaian military. The Constitution has identified a role for the military, primarily to protect and defend the territorial integrity of the Republic of Ghana. They have a role to play, and we must respect them. But that role must be played in the barracks. That role should not give them the opportunity to disrupt the Constitution. Not at all. Look, the useless coup that toppled Dr. Kwame Nkrumah never made any progress. And if coup had been good, then we wouldn't have had any problems now.
No.
And the useless coup that dismantled Dr. Liman's regime, that useless coup that dismantled Dr. Liman's regime, still never did anything good for this country. I'm telling you, at the end of the day, few disgruntled bandits in military uniform will come and enslave us in our own country. Let's rise. This should rather give us an opportunity to position ourselves strategically to confront the tanks if there is any military takeover. And this is not the first time we are going to do. This is not the first time it is going to be done. It has been done elsewhere. Turkey. In Turkey, civilians came out and confronted the coup makers. At a point, some of the soldiers had to abandon military vehicles and run for their lives. Some of them were caught and slaughtered. We don't want such a thing in this country. Constitutionalism must always be our choice. But that choice is dependent, the reality of that choice is dependent on good governance and anti-coup mentality.
Right. Thank you very much. A reminder that we are streaming live on Facebook. Log on to www.facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Send in your thoughts, your messages. I'll be more than glad to read them for you. Still to come, Go back to lecture theatres. Court orders UTAG. Minorities e-levy tussle in Parliament was a fight for democracy. That's according to former President John Mahama. And COPEC predicts another fuel price increment. We took that story from the Insight newspaper. So we'll be tackling the UTAG strike shortly. But before that, let's go for a short breather. When we return, we'll discuss that particular issue at length.
Trasaco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasaco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasaco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658.
Information.
But ask.
Me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, are they?
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I even called you. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasaco Fast Floor.
Trawanko, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg you, guys.
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today. And they gave me an estimate of how much it will cost. Yomo, the estimate is real. It's cheaper than the one I even sent you.
Wow.
Building contractors, foremen, masons. Visit IPCP, the Trasaco Fast Floor. Engineers will assist you build an affordable, faster, and stronger building.
Oh, madam. It is done.
Wow.
Trasaco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster, and affordable.
This is a Trasaco construction product.
Every day he looks after his brother and chases a bus. Every day he looks after his brother, chases a bus, and learns new things. Every day he looks after his brother, chases a bus, learns new things, and gets back home. Every day he looks after his brother, chases a bus, learns new things, gets back home, and helps his mom. Phew. That's why every day he needs his cup of Milo filled with the nutritious goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa. Milo, the energy to go further.
From Nestle.
This advert is FDA approved.
If you just joined us, you are watching the newspaper review segment of the morning show. We are live from number 48 Swanika Street in Abilink. We're also live on Facebook and on YouTube at Pan African television. Honorable Dr. Rashid Pelpo just joined us. Good morning, Honorable.
Hello,
We're talking about the traffic situation. It's terrible.
Oh,
huh?
It's so bad. It's so bad. I had to spend 1.5 hours between Legon and Tetekwashi. You can't imagine that.
Well, that actually stoked the discussion about we having a proper rail system.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, a rail system is a necessity. In fact, when you have a rail system and you have trams on the road, short distance train, you know, just from short distances they run. And a railway that can take you long distance between, for example, Accra and Adenta, within 20 minutes you are there.
Yeah.
And, you know, so you don't need to use your car. It's becoming so much. Accra has gotten to the point when we need it. And we will advocate for it because it's a necessity.
It's a necessity.
It's becoming too much, and people are spending long working hours on the road, just sitting down and doing nothing, spending fuel, spending time, wasting your whole working hours.
You know, right? By the time we even get to work, you're already tired.
Tired, yeah.
Spend so much of your time in traffic.
Driving and getting exasperated, what people crossing you, anger, and it's so bad.
Before you get to work, you're already in a bad mood. Right. We are talking about the University Teachers Association of Ghana. The story as captured by the Daily Graphic says university students can now temporarily heave a sigh of relief because the nearly 5-week strike by the University Teachers Association of Ghana has been put on hold by the Accra High Court. The Labour Division of the Accra High Court yesterday put an injunction on the strike after it upheld an interlocutory application by the National Labour Commission. Per the decision of the court presided over by Justice Frank Abuadre Roxen, UTAG is to suspend its strike immediately and go back to the lecture halls. In addition, the lecturers cannot embark on any strike until the financial determination of an application filed at the court by the NLC. The NLC filed the application for an order of the High Court to enforce its directive for UTAG to call off its strike and return to the negotiation table with the government. I'm going to ask Professor Dr. Mauto a straightforward question. Will he be good? You know, will he be teaching today? Simple as that. Will you be lecturing today or perhaps within the week?
Okay, so, you know, as a lecturer, I'm a member of UTAG. So whatever decision UTAG takes, I mean, I obey, I comply. I think currently the judgment, the verdict was announced yesterday. And since morning, I've not received anything yet. You know, in my case, I'm not just a lecturer, I'm also an administrator. So I work as well. I've never been on strike. I just don't go to the classroom to teach on the mainstream programs. I work in my capacity as an academic administrator and also on the programs that are purely IGF. You know, this is what we must also know, that government over the years have reduced funding to various universities. So in most cases, I mean, the only expenditure the government spends on universities has to do with payment of salaries of lecturers and other staff. But the universities virtually do everything. I'm saying this because I'm privy to it in my capacity as an administrative staff as well. So what it means is that there are some other programs that even though we're on strike, you have universities, I mean, running them concurrently. Hopefully, I mean, every laborer wants very good condition of service. And let me commend my executives for the good work they are doing. In fact, we have resolved that at least our employer should do something about our condition of service. Even if everything cannot be granted, at least something should be done. None of us, and our leaders have been saying, we are not happy staying at home because we have all been impacted. But the issue is that we are only asking for very good condition of service. Sometimes what some of us don't like is the way it's been politicized, okay? And I always say that when we are pursuing a national agenda, an agenda of common interest, not just for lecturers, but also for the sanctity of the profession, that the profession must give and compensate people with living allowance and then living wage, especially if you really want to retain very qualified people in the public universities. There's a need for you to enhance their remuneration. Okay, today we all know what is happening in the health sector. I mean, the other countries are attracting our health officials.
There are more Ghanaian doctors in the UK than there are in
Ghana.
Ghana.
In fact, COVID has even worsened it. COVID has worsened the plight of our health workers. I mean, in this country, there will be a point in time that we may not even have the qualified professionals. They are migrating to UK and US because they need the numbers now. And the only way you can probably curtail this movement is to also provide much incentives to discourage them from leaving the country, the shores of this country. That day is virtually coming to the era of the universities where people will not be motivated to probably apply and teach because of the dwindling effect of the economy on our salaries. Are you okay? So, in as much as the court has, directed that we go back to the classroom, I think the government must also know that indeed there should be that effort to ensure that the lecturer is motivated enough to stay in the classroom and then also go beyond staying in the classroom and stay in this country to work towards the development of human capacity. While saying this, yesterday I was a bit, let's talk about the political side of it. I was a bit disturbed when I heard Honorable's colleague, Dr. Park, who's a former member of UTAG, trying to shift the goalposts and making it look like it's purely the current government issue. Okay. Oh yes, and that and was even asking that the universities should be closed down. Sometimes, yes. Because yes, and you know it's a problem when I hear some of them saying this. It's a bit irritating that look, these are problems that none of this. And I always say, look, there's history, there's data, there's evidence that they've not been able to solve it. So we need that point in time where these two parties should sit down to find a lasting solution to solve problems than to doing this comparative analysis and try to limit what they couldn't do because they're in opposition. It goes to both parties. I always say it.
Yes,
I tried as much as possible to advise both parties.
Both parties.
Okay?
But I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Did former President John Evans Atta Mills, may so rest in peace, do anything about this situation?
My brother, if you want her to go to the nitty-gritty of this conversation, it didn't start today. It started from the day the single spine was implemented.
Okay.
Are you okay? Where a provision was to be made for a market premium, which should constitute 114% of our basic.
Did it take effect?
It couldn't. It couldn't. There's a white paper signed in 2013. It couldn't take effect.
Okay.
And it has been outstanding since then. That is why I question, the submission of some of the minority guys.
Right.
That if you have solved it in 2013, we wouldn't be where we are today. So instead of trying to admit that, look, it wasn't solved in 2013 because maybe the government was not financially sound to do that. Are you okay? There were some underlying factors that, triggered those decisions. And maybe it has not changed today. So instead of trying to, help address the issue, don't politicize it at all. That has always been my problem with our politicians. When and for this, let me establish this caveat. Honorable, I always say that is a nationalist. He speaks to the issues. Sometimes his argument doesn't even go in tandem with what his party says, because he brings on board that maturity. And that is why we've missed him. We've missed him. Just that he must announce his presence, that indeed he belongs to the NDC party. Yeah, okay. But apart from that, he always speaks to the issues. Oh yeah, which is okay. No, which is okay. I identify myself as an academic, just as you. So he will also do that by telling the whole world that he's still a member of the NDC. And also represented his people in parliament. So it is good that indeed parliament has invited us, even though my president said that we haven't received it. Then quickly the letter came. And the subcommittee is made up of both the minority and majority. So when they invite us, what it means is that there will be a common interest to ensure that we go back to the classroom. For me, I mean, now back to the question you asked. If my national executives tell me to go to the classroom today, I'm going back to the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we look up to them, and whatever they say, whatever they negotiate on our behalf, we accept it. So we are just hoping that indeed, in the next few days to come, we'll go back to the classroom, but the government must also see how best they will compensate us to retain us. A number are leaving slowly from the classroom. You probably will say, oh, there are several lecturers around. But the truth is that it takes a number of years to train people in the system in order to deliver like those who had experience and have left that particular classroom. Okay, you may have a lot of people with CVs and qualifications to teach, but others have taught, they've gained experience, and they will go and use it in other countries. That's the most painful part of it. And better. Look, go to a South African university. My brother, Ghanaian professors are there, and they'll tell you. And sometimes when you engage in some conversation, you ask yourself, why? What have I done in deciding to serve my own country? Honorable. What have I done? What offense have I committed? They are enjoying themselves there. They are doing everything possible to ensure that the lecturers who are engaged there have very good life. I mean, some dignity. Okay, so, and that is all I think UTAG is asking for. But I'm happy that we are where we are today. At least we go back to the classroom whilst negotiation continues. Admittedly, I mean, the government has said that, look, go back to the classroom and then we'll negotiate. It means there's a way out. So we are hoping that our incentives will be enhanced so that we go back to the classroom and will not strike again. While saying this, the NDC and NPP must come together to solve the problem than to be pointing fingers at each other.
Right. Dr. Mazuk, I want to find out from you, what could happen if UTAG decides to defy the court's orders? If UTAG decides that, okay, you've asked us to go to the classroom, but we are not going to do that anyway until we substantially see that you have resolved this particular issue, and we know that XYZ amount is what we are going to earn once, we return.
It will mean two things, primarily, and I don't think any of them will happen because of the kind of members of UTAG, their level of intellectualism, their level of gentility, their level of respect, their level of sympathy, their level of empathy will not call for these two things. One, it will amount to contempt of court.
Yeah.
I don't think UTAG will allow itself to be dragged to the chains of contempt of court. UTAG will not do that. I know UTAG will comply. Two, it will amount to irresponsibility or unethical misconduct, UTAC is a professional body. UTAC will not exhibit any kind of irresponsibility or any kind of misconduct or violate any ethics. So these two things will not happen. I can guarantee that they will not happen. Right. But let me tell you something about the implication of the court order. To be frank with you, this is not a solution. It's not everything, it is not the case that everything legal is productive. Or it is not the case that everything lawful is good. No. Sometimes things that are lawful are not good for the society. I strongly believe that this matter could have been well resolved out of court. But out of court settlement is the best. You know why? As a lecturer, and as a Ghanaian, I can be compelled by the court to go back to the classroom. Right? And that is exactly what the court has done. But the court, the judge, cannot compel me to perform in the classroom. You understand that? Yeah. Going back to the classroom is one thing. Performance in the classroom is another. It's a matter of credit hours. I can go and waste my credit hours with my students. And even I can do it professionally, in the sense that I can just go, instead of giving them the necessary lectures, I would rather be giving them funny stories. And you know, students, they'll be laughing. We'll laugh throughout the credit hours and come back. At the end of the day, productive teaching and learning hours will be abused, right? So I strongly believe that it is not a matter of court ordering the striking lecturers to go back to classroom. I strongly believe that it is a matter of out-of-court settlement. It is a matter of the commitment by the government to solving the issues confronting the lecturers. Government must do that.
Right.
Because if you leave it to the court, of course, justice, the court will rule based on the evidence before it. And of course, the court has spoken. As I am saying, no UTAC member is foolish enough to disregard the court order. I don't think UTAC will do that.
Right. Would you say that the NLC, the National Labour Commission, and UTAC have a good relationship? Do they have the interest of UTAC at heart?
Of course, that is very debatable. I see the two institutions to be fighting for a common interest from different perspectives. It's just like the NDC MPP fighting for the development of the Republic of Ghana from different ideological perspectives. Right. So that's how I see it. I don't want to think that they are at loggerheads or one is not interested in the development or in the progress of the other. I think it is the incompatibility between the approaches by the two. But at the end of the day, both of them are ready for the educational development and for the future of students. That's how I say it. And that is why I am saying that the two institutions should even avoid the court. Diplomacy is still a weapon. It is still an option that the two institutions can be used, right? And of course, you are dealing with intellectuals. Not that intellectual. Let me tell you something. Teaching is not just about knowing. Teaching is more than knowing. Imparting knowledge is more than knowing. Imparting knowledge is inclusive of humanitarian sense, a sense of humanitarianism. It is inclusive of care for the students. It is inclusive of building the future of the students. It is inclusive of trying to ensure a holistic moral character, not just imparting knowledge, a moral character. So teachers are not just teaching for transactional purposes, no. In fact, every responsibility, of course, Prof, you agree with me that largely teachers do not view teaching as transactional. They view it as service to humanity. You understand that? But then, as humans, they are also entitled to economic fortunes. Respect them based on their inputs, based on their efforts. Right. But then, if you try to undermine them, you will definitely have problems. What I want to add is that this is a matter of brain drain and brain gain. In fact, systematically, the brain drain is being witnessed in the teaching profession. People don't know. Systematically, a lot of people faculty members are running away from this country. A lot. People are not aware. Unfortunately, we should rather be looking for opportunities of brain gain. Because every campus is a source of brain gain, not brain drain. This strike can lead to a substantial level of brain drain. We must do everything possible to end this strike amicably. And that is impossible without compromises and sacrifices from both parties. We are dealing with an issue involving a third party, an innocent third party, the student. Our intransigence will continue to harm that innocent third party called the student. As patriots, as professionals, we must avoid anything that will harm that innocent party. As policymakers, government and its agencies must avoid anything that will harm that innocent third party, who is expected to be the future leader of this country. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Before I come to Honorable Dr. Rashid Pelpo, let me do a few of your Facebook messages. Mohammed Abdul Razak Ali says, good morning, bless. Is the government re-registering the whole SIM cards or only those with mobile money accounts? Because my mom's little sister queued for 3 hours and MTN refused to register my mom's card simply because she doesn't have Momo account. I'm confused. Yakubu Dan Musa says, we cannot be calling for a coup in this our republic. We have come a long way as a nation. Calling for a coup is like building with your right hand and then using your left hand to destroy it. In a democratic republic, in a democratic republic nation, there are multiple choices to remove a regime. Look at the Arab Spring and uprisings. Ghanaians can imitate sameness, not call for coup. The masses have the power to do everything. KK from Kaswa says that Nanado and Dr. Bawumia are working too much, so shouldn't allow the opposition to deceive us. Soon Ghana will be like USA or Canada. Right. Thank you very much. That's from Kiki Kaswa. Thank you very much for that message. Yakubu Don Musa says, the good people of Ghana should uphold the vice president to his words. He has misled many Ghanaians, and many Ghanaians need a response on the outlay of the current economic climate. He goes on to say that these lecturers are hypocritical of the previous administration and helped vote them out of office. If you want the country to adhere to you and your plight, then you have to be unbiased in the querying of the country's governance. And right, Antor says the problem is non-continuity of solving the nation's problems by the two major political parties. And Harry Day says, okay. Ko Mensa Pillar 2 says, say no to coup and support e-levy for a better Ghana. Thank you very much. Keep the messages coming. Let me come to Honorable Dr. Rashid Pelpo on the issue of UTAC, they've been asked to return to the classrooms. Initially, people were actually raising, eyebrows, asking questions of whether or not the government even has the money to meet their demands in the first place. The fact that if you take what we are able to make as a country, the money we make as a country, it only caters for two things, debt and then the payment of salaries. The other things that there's virtually no money for, for nothing. We've seen other organizations go on strike. Does the country have the money currently to meet the demands of these lectures?
Well, thank you so much, and good morning to WA Central and the rest of our viewers. I think that we are in a critical situation. The reason being that we are in a difficult economic situation in this country. For the last 5 years, the government has tried to balance off debts and income and has consistently failed to do so because of our inability to honor most of the institutional and legal demands on us, such as payment of remunerations and transfer of income to certain specific statutory bodies. The challenge is even more compounded this time round when the debt levels we have accumulated has risen to a very high level, to the point that it becomes difficult for government to honor many of the obligations, such as responding adequately to the demands of UTAC. As we all know, UTAC is a very important organization. They build the knowledge base of our country. They build the youth to be able to take responsibility of the future. And so they enhance knowledge. They keep the tracks of our development forward. Because once they are able to transport knowledge or transform and transmit knowledge to the young person, the high possibility is that they can function effectively in the country. So when you see them on strike, it is something of serious concern. But where you find that seriousness not being taken care of by the ruling administration, just know that there's something wrong. You see, presently, we are moving close to 80% of debt to GDP. And the our tax levels are running down because we don't have enough income coming from the external sources. For example, we don't have enough income coming from borrowing, because we have gotten to the point when borrowing is becoming difficult anymore. So, and UTAC is making a demand which will make it difficult for government to honor right now. And that's why some people think that, well, it must be the fault of government. You should have taken note of all this. You don't run into trouble and then you now have a problem you can't solve. That's the major problem. But the issue is this. We all want our kids to be back in school. And in 2012, the problem of UTAC was addressed. They demanded that they wanted over $2,000 as a starting point or entry point for all graduates. The government negotiated, the new government subsequently, 2013, negotiated and brought it down to less than 1,000. And they agreed so that they can move towards getting onto the new payment regime. It's been going on for some time until now, when they thought that, look, we have stayed long enough, we want a change. And there have been promises to them, look, we will do it for you, and we will do it for you has been a sing-song. And so they keep going on strike and returning to work, keep going on strike and returning to work. Until now, they got to a point, they say, look, you have been on holiday for too long. You've had all this plenty money. You satisfy so many things, but you've not satisfied UTAC. So let's make it a point this time round not to budge to the call to go back to work and get the money. And that's the point we are in now. So I think that there must be some understanding at both sides. Now, the court has declared that the UTAC strike is illegal and they should return to work. I think that the court must be respected so that whilst you are negotiating, you don't go on strike. Because in the course of negotiation, allowances are given. What I mean is that people give up their positions and allow your positions to come halfway until we get to a point where there's understanding. So in the course of that, once there's talking going on, it means that there's going to be some solutions. So you don't go on strike to meddle the job you are doing. But I do support the fact that UTAC should demand what they want, because it is already an agreement signed and approved by both sides. Implementing it is the problem now. Why will government not implement it, if not fully, but halfway? And if government is not doing it, why will government not do it? And what are they explaining to the university teachers? There must be some level of understanding coming on. There must be some communications to them. So we know exactly what government is thinking. We know the government is facing some difficulties right now. But for them, it shouldn't be a reason for them not to get what they want. So I think that we are in a terrible situation. I want to see my daughters, my kids go back to school. Those who are going who are in the public university are down. They are back home and they are unable to go. We don't want that, and so we want to call on both government and the UTAC to come to a compromise soonest, so that the academic calendar is not destroyed. We want to see the academic calendar move on, and Ghana will not be different from the rest of West Africa because we move along the same trend. And so we are looking forward to government listening to UTAC and UTAC coming to a certain compromise, respecting the court rules and going back to work.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mazuk, let me come back to you. You were talking about the fact that this could disrupt the academic calendar. Hasn't it already been disrupted?
It has already been disrupted.
So how do you make up for the contact hours lost?
Oh, of course. Oh, that one is very simple. You can make up the contact hours very simple, but that adds an extra burden on the learner and then the teacher. For instance, if you have, there are two ways you can do it. You can maintain normally a semester is 16 weeks, ideally. We have instances in which we do not use the ideal situation, but ideally, conventionally, a semester is 16 weeks. 12 weeks of lectures, 2 weeks of revision, and 2 weeks of examination. All right? Okay, so when you do that, what you do, if it is 16 weeks, you can still maintain, you've lost about 4 weeks, right? So instead of the availability of the credit hours, the normal availability of the credit hours on daily basis, you will increase the contact hours or the credit hours on daily basis. If, for example, you are at level 200 and you have 4 credit hours a day, now the academic administration department could decide, the registry could decide, or those responsible for the timetable could decide that instead of 4 hours, you will do 6 or 8 hours to make up on the daily basis, so that the semester as designed is not disturbed. You increase the number of hours in a day. So you can do that, and then you can still have the 16 hours for the semester, for the normal semester. Again, when you do that, you can also try to allow the contact hours to go up to, instead of the 2 weeks for the revision, you make the revision period to part of the contact hours. Okay. Right. So you do you do things, you do 2 things at the same time. When the 2 weeks left for the revision could be used for lectures and revision at the same time. Right? And then when it comes to the examination, using 8 hours of 2 hours or 3 hours for the examination, 4 hours or 2 hours for daily examination, you can increase the papers on daily basis. That is how you can do it. That is one way. Another way is to increase, is to increase the whole semester, shift the whole semester, so that the students will not enjoy the normal holiday period. Part of the normal holiday period will be used as part of the lecture sessions. Okay. So 2 things, either to maintain the first one that I have explained, increasing the daily contact hours so that you can accommodate all the contact hours within the semester and make up within that same semester, so that students will still have the same period of holiday enjoyment, or to take part of the holiday enjoyment and move that part to the lecture sessions. In that case, the academic calendar will shift. It will then shift from one period to another period, and the period of the holidays for the students and the lecturers will be shortened. That's how it can be done. Another thing, another way is to mount a summer semester. Normally we call it summer semester or sandwich semester, because we call it over there. It is largely known as summer semester because that semester comes in the period of summer. But here, because we may not have that kind of summer that they have, we can call it sandwich semester. So you allow this. For example, this academic calendar has been disturbed. So we are starting, we were supposed to start lectures last month or 2 months ago. We haven't started lectures. So the 2 months have gone, and we'll just allow the 2 months to go. So we'll mount this semester, and then it goes, so we'll start from now and count up to the 16 weeks for the semester. Immediately after that, that holiday period can be used as another semester, and that will be the sandwich semester to make up. So 3 ways: maximizing the credit hours within the limited semester. That's number 1. Number 2, taking part of the holidays period to make up. Number 3, mounting a fresh sandwich semester for makeup.
Right. Dr. Mauto, let me come to you finally on this UTAG issue. This isn't the first time that we've seen University Teachers Association of Ghana embark on strike. And sometimes you return to the lecture halls and still your demands are not met. What could be the possible action that UTAG would take if, should it happen that you pick up your tools and still government does not meet your demands?
Yes.
Is it going to be a cyclical thing? Okay.
It's always been cyclical. I mean, the employer has never met, the aspirations of, the financial aspirations of the average lecturer. It has never happened before in this country. We always ask for more. And it's always, virtually every sector, every industry, the employee always wants better emolument. You see, today people are talking about parliament. But I know Honorable is here. Honorable even will want a higher remuneration than what they are taking now. Oh, Honorable, I'm telling you. So there's no way these two parties will always agree. Take into consideration the interplay of economic performance in this country, where virtually every now and then, your currency depreciates, I mean, vis-a-vis the other currencies. When our economy depends so much on foreign goods, are you okay? Your currency will not be so that stable. Therefore, what it means is that you have your income, disposable income, always depleting because of the interplay of economic variables. So I hope, for me, I think there should be some policy to regulate how people are remunerated in this country. Let's learn the West, are you okay, what they have done to ensure that people choose a profession based on not just the financial benefit, but also the fact that everything has been explained. You don't need someone to always tell you what you must do. Today, there are agencies everywhere. I mean, you contact them, they link you to various companies and all that. The remuneration, process must be streamlined by the stakeholders, the Fair Wage Commission, the government itself. They represent the government itself, so we'll say that they are the employers of public servants. And the fact that we need to also admit that, you see, the Ghanaian economy is not giving us what we expect, especially in the midst of COVID. That is probably the reason why we may go back to the classroom. But if you're looking at the disposable income, I can tell you, my brother, most lecturers are not very happy with it. And if you are going back to the classroom, then it is because probably we've considered a lot of factors. And then the fact that the court has asked us to go back to the classroom. I know there are, government is meeting our people. And we are hopeful that something good will come out of it, even if our demands are not met in its entirety. But I hope that this is our country, my brother. This is our country. We have nowhere to go. Sometimes you decide to stay not because of the money. If it's about the money, some of us would have moved to the corporate, the private sector. If it's about money, because you receive more than that. I can tell you that what I received today in the public university is about 25% of what I've gotten if I move to the private sector. Yes, and please, I'm a qualified chartered accountant.
You have the experience.
Chartered accountant. Okay, I have the option to practice. I have the option to go to any company of my choice, and I'll get about 4 times what I'm getting in the classroom as a lecturer. Okay, so these are things that government must know. That indeed you may have your rate all right, but there are some people who are staying not because of the money we are paying, but because they love teaching. They just want to impact knowledge, and that's what the government must know and meet us halfway in order to ensure that some peace prevail on our various campuses. We also have wards in the school. We pay fees on semester basis. We want them to move on. But most importantly, you were trying to get some feedback on how to address the deficiency in them. Look, it will interest you to know that even some universities are still struggling to recover the losses due to the lockdown, the COVID lockdown. So some are still in about a semester outstanding. In addition to this,
yes, there's
another deficit when it comes to completion of semesters. And I think he's answered it. What we normally do is to probably eat into the long vac.
Yeah.
Yes. So it means lecturers will not have that time, opportunity of resting, but we will have to eat into long vac. Students may not also have the leisure of going home during long vac. They have to stay on campus to address the gap. And afterwards, we probably will have to revert back to the normal semester calendar, where you have people start and know that in 4 years' time they'll complete. Some graduations have been affected, disrupted.
That's true.
Yeah, some people are waiting to graduate last year, but they have to graduate this year because of the COVID as well as this particular strike. 1-2 week strike is serious. I mean, because we have very tight semesters, and if you're able to lose out or miss out within 2 weeks to 1 month, it means your entire semester is truncated. And if you don't take care, you have to either eat into a long vac or the following semester. So I hope that yes, 5 weeks is longer time to say that it has really disrupted their calendar, and the only option is to probably prolong it or do some sandwich interventions to help the students complete on time. Yeah.
Right.
Let me just add something. I think we also need to be fair to universities that use the trimester. UDS, by virtue of the nature of its course design, uses the trimester instead of semester.
Yeah.
So how do they do? They also have an option.
Yeah, it really impacted.
You see, they also have an option. Already they are using trimester. So when it comes to the solution, definitely the third one will not be suitable for them, because the third one would have been, the summer semester would have been the third semester. You understand that? Of course, they already have a trimester. So they stand to have a greater burden. I think DS will be limited to the prolonging of the first trimester. That is, okay, in other words, reducing the period of holidays. I think that's what, because they have a very peculiar situation.
Very tight.
Yes, very tight. Yes. They don't have a relaxed period. They don't have a very long period of holidays that will allow them to make up. So they will have to consider the maximization of credit hours within the 3 semesters in the year. The first trimester, the second trimester, and the third trimester. They are expected to maximize contact hours, and that will be very difficult. Let me also add that part of the problem, universities are semi-autonomous institutions. So if it is possible, government, and that is why universities are allowed to design their own courses and undertake their own research and whatever. If it is possible, let government think of allowing the universities themselves to handle issues of salaries. If it is possible, let's weigh that option too. Let's see how best the universities could take over either entirely or a substantial level of the salaries of the staff, because that will also minimize the tension between the academia and the policy makers.
Right.
That is only to say if it is possible. If it is possible in the context of our economic strength and in the context of feasibility, then the government should allow the universities to think of that. There are universities that run programs that are not supported by government, fee-paying programs. Yeah. You understand that? Universities. Some time ago, it was unthinkable to run a fee-paying program because all the tuitions are paid by the government. Today, we have universities running fee-paying programs. Right. And the universities have the right to use these monies generated from the fee-paying programs to do whatever they want to do to maximize teaching and learning. Let the government and the universities consider an alternative of paying themselves.
Thank you very much. I think we have some 15 minutes more. Let's tackle what would be our last topic. Minorities e-levy tussle in Parliament was a fight for democracy. I'll start with Honorable on this particular issue. Former President John Dramani Mahama met with the clergy. The clergy have for some time now been accused of being silent. I'm not the one saying it, and I think you all would agree. Lots of people have been accusing them of being silent and being part of this government. They don't talk about issues. I'm not the one saying it. That's what people have been saying, and I'm sure Honorable is privy to this information.
But what is your position on what others have been saying?
Oh,
But to be frank with you, before you answer that question, let me tell you, that has always been the case. It has always been the case. MPP will accuse the clergy. I'm telling you, when NDC comes to power market, MPP loyalists, not MPP as an institution, MPP loyalists who may not understand the dynamics of democratic governance will accuse the clergy of being in bed with NDC. We've seen it in this country. And once MPP is in power, some NDC members who may not appreciate the dynamics of governance will accuse the clergy of being in bed with the government. That has always been the case.
Right.
But I think that is also an opportunity for the clergy to make its position very clear, at least for those who have eyes to see.
Right. I'll start with Honorable Dr. Rashid Popo on this particular issue.
Yeah.
Former President Mahama met with them, and I think they said they were on a peace mission. If you read from the papers, they were on a peace mission. They talked about what transpired in Parliament in the dying embers of last year, the brouhaha that took place in Parliament of last year. But let's focus our attention on the clergy and their contributions to the political discourse. We all know that they play a pivotal role as far as peace is concerned. Have they done enough, in your estimation, ever since the New Patriotic Party took over the reins? Some people were saying that during the time of the NDC, they were bashing the government, blah 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 blah. They used to be very vocal, and when the NPP took over power, they went silent.
Well, thank you so much. But if you will bear with me, you would have seen that this is the first time in the history of the 5 years of the NPP you have heard about the clergy doing anything about governance. And if you recall also, in the period of the NDC, you will hear many of them, this popular bushy hair, Mate, who used to be very critical of NDC government, attended programs, was vocal, and said it was his responsibility as a clerk to criticize John Mahama and criticize NDC because he, according to him, was doing it for the people. He's still living. He hasn't died. The same clergy that said that it was their God-sent duty to support the cry for a change are still in there now. Now there's a more cry for a change. But rather than crying for a change, they are going to John Mahama to say that support government in its policies because it's the order. Let's try and see that they can. So you don't understand the kind of information they want to send to Ghanaians. But it's important, and it is true, that the clergy is a critical element of society, and anytime society goes wayward, it's their responsibility to stand strong, objective, and to put forward proposals that can straighten up the process of moving. It's not only the clergy that is silent, it is also the academia, that doesn't demonstrate strength in telling Ghanaians that there's a need for us to address many of the challenges we are facing today. Remember Professor Adai, who used to speak so much, criticize John Mahama, talk about family and friends government. He has seen 100 times or 1,000 times that of what he criticized now. He's quiet, riding his Land Cruiser because government has placed him somewhere. Yeah. That is not an academic. That is not an objective soul.
He's no longer in academia.
An academic is always an academic. It doesn't matter whether you practice.
No longer in academia.
Oh yeah, no longer
in academia.
Yeah. So when you see such souls, you begin to wonder what atoms or energy they are made up of, because we are supposed to be people with objective minds when we appear when we work in some circles or some sectors of endeavors. So if you're an academic and you are a cleric or a clergy, a person from the clergy, you need to you post yourself in such a way that you are free from non-objective views, you know, so that we can respect you as such. So it's good that today they are showing their faces, but let them go to the president and tell him that the many promises he made Ghanaians and failed are hurting us today. That the borrowing he has done irresponsibly are hurting us today. And that the e-levy he's bringing, which is opposed by 90% of Ghanaians, must be reviewed. I mean, these are things we want them to see, we want to see them do, so that in the end, we can continue to respect them as leaders who are eager to solve problems of the day. And I want to see more of them. I want to see more of the clergy, and I want to see more of the actions they will take. I don't want to see impartial demonstration of a clergy that needs to be objective. I don't want to see a clergy of Reverend Mate and Co. type who can talk only when another party is in power and be quiet when another party is in power. I don't want to see an academic like Professor Adai, who has a mouth to talk only when John Mahama or NDC is in power, and will have a close mouth when MPP is in power. You know, we want to see objectivity playing the game. But essentially, I can say that I'm happy that, like I said from the beginning, that the clergy is taking a post to talk. We want to see a government that serves the people. I just want to let, you know, Ghanaians know, when we oppose, it is not to oppose to kill. It is opposed to make better.
Yeah.
And it's important for government to listen to that, so that when you listen to that, it doesn't kill you, it doesn't destroy your ego, but it gives you a lot more confidence to rule. That the views I'm projecting into policy is in combination of both ideas by government and opposition. So you can have confidence to move. But every time when you push down the opposition views and project your own views, you walk with unsteady step. This is the first time in the history of 1992 political dispensation, there's too much talk about coup d'etat, coup d'etat. Do you know the reason? The reason is that government is not listening to the people. They are taking it alone. And they are feeling their own failure. And people are getting frustrated. I hate to think about Ghana ever going in coup d'etat. Hate it. And I hope it will never happen again. But it's important for every ruling government to listen to the pulse of the people, so that as you move, you don't look back and say, somebody is following me with a gun. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. I think Honorable Sampi Yali buttresses that argument Dr. Mazuki was making about, you know, universities being entirely autonomous. He says, I do not see why our universities should still remain on government payrolls. All our universities must be perfectly autonomous. This will allow for effective governance and improvements in our education at the tertiary levels. Why stick to a system that no longer works? So this particular message came from Honorable Sam P. Yale.
I rise in his
you know the problem with this particular submission?
No, tell me.
Okay, so currently, when it comes to public universities with such autonomies, then we can liken GIMPA to be one of those ones, because GIMPA pays its own salaries. Okay, but Honorable, you know myself and you, how many average Ghanaians can have access to education at GIMPA? No, that's a gospel truth.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
So it makes it a bit expensive for you to allow the universities to be so financially autonomous. And I always say that currently what the government does is to pay salaries. The other expenditure items are borne by the universities. from medical, for saving some cleaners and all that. I mean, you do that as an administrator of a university. Probably, I mean, we should indeed, I mean, once the system is not working, then there's a need for us to look at an alternative. Are you okay? And I would not prefer that complete autonomy, but a hybrid of government financial support. Are you okay? And then also giving the universities that autonomy to pay their staff. And how can it be done? In some other jurisdictions, in some other countries, universities are allowed to pay their, what do you call it, salaries, and even allowed to charge the fees. However, government makes available financial support for students. So nobody will ever say that indeed I did not have access.
No. Just briefly.
I did not have. It's my first. If you are not conscious of it.
But I think what Prof has said is true. But then, at the end of the day, government must make the economy conducive for the universities to operate and pay for themselves. It is still up to government. And when I made a statement,
so when you make that written, that's okay. But when you continue, it will slip away.
Exactly. I said either entirely or substantially.
Substantially. Now, okay, then on the issue of the clergy meeting, John Mahama, and he telling them that that fight in Parliament was a fight for democracy.
Thank you. There's no time. And let me tell you what I prefer. But I'm not interested in the clergy, the tension between clergy and government. I'm interested in the content and the wisdom in the words of former President John Mahama. He has made a statement. And of course, whether you like him or not, you will agree with him. It is a fact that the minorities' position or whatever they did was in the interest of democracy. You see, it is because of the position of the minority that we are now witnessing greater consultation, greater engagement on the issue of e-levy. At least the country has come to a common position, or systematically coming to a common position. The common position now is that, yes, we can allow it. But the rate must be minimized. It should be feasible. People should, the 1.7, right? Is it 1.7?
1.75.
1.75 is now the bone of contention. People have begun to understand it. Yet, the 1.75 continues to be the subject matter of disagreement. So what John Mahama has said is true. And we should all learn from this. Let nobody politicize anything undertaken by government or by opposition. In fact, some of the opposition elements may think that they are doing it for partisan consideration. But at the end of the day, whatever they have done has entrenched the culture of constitutionalism, the sense of engagement, the sense of respect for public opinion. And I think we should be interested in that. Just as we started by saying that as Africans, we should be interested in things that portray us as positive human beings. And not in things that portray us as negative human beings.
And all of this wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a hung parliament.
Of course, yes, that is true. And I would look, you know,
it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a hung parliament.
But to be frank with you, it would never have happened if we didn't have a hung parliament. But I'm telling you, if Ghanaians hadn't also been very conscious, even that hung parliament wouldn't have been functional. We've seen that hung parliament pass some ministers. So that is entirely not the case. I think the case here. Yes.
That's very true.
Yes.
Even in the case of Ejapa.
There was no hung parliament.
But you see, civil societies, the media makes democracy work.
Yes.
It's not just about parliament.
Yes.
Okay, it's not just about parliament. And indeed, Sorry.
No problem, that's fine.
For this particular topic, okay, minority came out and said no. Your argument, your submissions were enriched by the support from the civil society as well as the media
and the masses.
Okay.
Of Ghana, yeah.
And I'm so happy with the submission. That is, when it comes to governance in a democratic environment, engagement is very, very important to my brother. And for this,
it's a cardinal principle of democracy.
All this while, I've been observing the former presidents when it comes to his submission on this e-levy thing. And then the economy as a whole. He's even called for stakeholder consultation.
Yes.
Yeah. Bring everybody on. That is the type of democracy we need in this country.
Yes.
We don't want. I don't think Ghana wants NDC project and MPP project.
No,
Ghana doesn't need
NDC
economy and MPP economy. We need a Ghanaian economy.
Right.
And I'm so happy. I don't know whether because he's now in the opposition, that is why he's done. But he's really composed himself very well.
His posture
and his posture as to how to manage a national problem. For instance, the issue of whether we should go to IMF or not. He called it, look, let's have a sincere conversation. And that's a plus for a former president.
Good.
Asking the current president that, look, this thing is not about NDC and PP. If it's about NDC and PP, then Parliament is not for.
Yeah.
Because you have virtually the numbers being equal. We have chiefs. We have the people.
It's past 10.
The reps of the youth. All those people should be involved in governance.
And Prof, let me tell you something. I mean, finally, the argument has shifted from all angles. Those who were of the view that without e-levy Ghana will collapse have abandoned that argument. Those who were of the view, those of us who were of the view that we should just oppose e-levy, we've also revised our positions.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it is the public opinion. It is the interest of Ghanaians that must win in a democracy.
Right. Thank you very much. And that's how we draw curtains on this morning's edition of the show. Thank you very much, Honorable Rashid Pelpo. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mensa Mauto. Thank you very much, Dr. Mazouk. It's been very interesting and a very educative, edition of the morning show. Very educative. I believe you all would agree. About UTAG, about the clergy, about happenings in Ethiopia and all of that. See you same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.